the slogan of shaping our digital future. The Arab International Digital Cooperation and Development Forum, the CDF, will bring together representatives and experts from Arab governments, the business sector, civil society, the technical community, academia, and international organizations. DCDF will be held virtually from 13 to 23 December 2021 by ESCO, LAS, ITU, UNCTAD, and UNDESA. Through almost 30 sessions over 8 days, you can participate in policy debate on priority issues in the fields of internet policies and digital development globally and in the Arab region. DCDF aims to align the Arab tracks of the World Summit on the Information Society and the Internet Governance Forum to maximize opportunities for digital cooperation. Register now to join us in this journey from 13 to 23 December. Together, let's shape our digital future.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the first session, setting the scene session of the 6th Arab Internet Governance Forum. The 6th edition of the Arab Internet Governance Forum, a really very unique platform for policy debate, for policy dialogue, and for policy advocacy that has been put together like a decade ago. In 2010, here in that building, we called for it. We called for the League of Arab States, Arab stakeholders to come together and build the Arab IGF. And we have made it in 2012, January 2012, like almost 9 years from now. We launched the Arab Internet Governance Forum with the partnership with many players in the Arab region, many countries, many business actors, many technical community actors, as well as organizations, as well as civil society, academia, and you name it. We have with us today a composite panel from our, let us say, parent forum, the Global Forum. And we have also panelists from the Arab Internet Governance strategic partners, as well as key, let us say, opinion makers and opinion leaders in different topics related to internet governance. Without further ado, this session is about the ecosystems of internet governance, about the global ecosystems before we discuss our internet governance regional ecosystems. And it also is related to the Arab ecosystems as it stands today, and also how we think about it in the future. That is the gist of that session. And we will start by the global perspective from our colleague and friend, Mr. Shengtai. Mr. Shengtai Masango. He is the Program and Technology Manager, United Nations Secretariat for the Internet Governance Forum, heading that secretariat since long time, through difficult times, through innovative times as well. And he is heading that secretariat, which was set after the World Summit on Information Society to facilitate public policy discourse on issues related to key elements of internet governance in order to foster sustainability, robustness, security, stability, and development of the internet. Mr. Masango, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ayman. And first of all, I'd just like to congratulate you and the team for producing this meeting. I know it's very difficult, and we've just come back from our IGF in Katowice, and we do know how difficult it is. As far as the Internet Governance Forum is concerned, over the past years, we've seen its growth. just now we've had 10,000 registrations, and those people did participate online and offline. And from what I've seen, that the most pressing issues, of course, highlighted by the pandemic is access, harmful content on the internet, platform responsibility, and then the youth as well. The youth and the capacity building was also very much highlighted. We also, coming off from the roadmap, the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation, we also try to fulfill all the things under paragraph 93. We are establishing a panel, a leadership panel, which will be of ministerial level, CEO level people who will come together and try and make that connection between the IGF and various institutions, and also provide some leadership, some direction where the IGF should go. But of course, this is working hand in hand with the current MAG. And we've also got the Common Agenda and the Global Compact, which was talked about in the opening session by Mr. Liu, the Undersecretary General of UNDESA, and also the ASG in the Tech Envoy's office. So what we do see is that there are people willing to discuss amongst stakeholder groups for the good of the internet and for the good of the public as such. The other thing that we're also trying to do is we are trying to get involved the legislators, because the legislators are the ones that actually make the laws. And we have a very strong parliamentary track, which was in its third year this year as well. And one of the things that one of the suggestions that we had in the IGF was also to try and involve judges, which we have not done in the past. So we are going to try and involve judges, and we are also listening to the Secretary General, trying to involve those marginalized people or marginalized groups. So going forward until 2025, which is when our third mandate ends, I do see as more strengthening of the IGF, more capacity building activities, more inclusion of the youth, and also more engagement amongst all stakeholder groups in the talking. So I think the IGF does have a positive future. Yes, we are still, grappling with issues that everybody else grapples with, issues such as funding, but we did engage a funding consultant, and we will see how that goes in the coming years. As far as the future hosts, I think we're at a very good stage, except for 2024, but we are in negotiations with some countries, and we'll see if we can fill in 2024. But we do have Addis Ababa, we have Japan and Russia in 2025. And we are, of course, increasing our engagement with the national and regional initiatives, where we have over 130 national and regional initiatives. And we do feel that these initiatives will also play a very big role in the Secretary General's, not only the Secretary General's roadmap, but also the Common Agenda and the Global Compact. I think I'll stop there, Ayman, and give it back to you.
Okay, that is good enough for the first round, good enough food for thought. And we will continue taking from the panelists views also on the global level. And then in the next segment, we will move more into the Arab sphere. So who was there in Poland this year from that panel? I think that Wafa in specific.
Yes, I was there.
So you just arrived from Poland, or you are there? Or
No.
Virtual now?
No, I just arrived from Poland.
So tell us, what is really the most detectable trends on global hot issues that you came up with back from Poland?
Actually, I will try to highlight how the IGF is has been changing and coming close to the IGF plus structure. That will be my speech about the IGF. Before that, I would like to say hello to distinguished panelists and their participants. So let me start, Ayman, but saying that the internet governance has come today. The discussion has reached critical turning point, and as the reform discussion matures, it's time to take next steps. The IGF must develop its operation and evolve into IGF plus. As you may know, IGF plus infrastructure was designed to address some gaps of the IGF. Among them, I will list leadership, inclusivity, norms and policy implementation, coordination and partnership. And during my speech, I will try to match what have been done to address these gaps during the organization of the last IGF. I will start by the first action that I noticed, and the change that I noticed is about stronger digital corporation leadership. By introducing a new structure segment of the IGF organizational system, the multi-stakeholder high-level body called the Leadership Panel. Shangatai has talked about this. We know that the public call of nomination for the panel has concluded before the last IGF, and it is currently under processing. The next, the second issue is about inclusivity and facilitating participation, which we saw some evolvements in this issue. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the last IGF was held fully hybrid, as a fully hybrid meeting. Shangatai said that the participation were more than 10,000 participants, and they were coming from 175 countries, which is really amazing. The participation of all sessions were well moderated online and on site. They were online, of course, participants and on-site participants. But the issue of language is still challenging, and it was handled. It was raised during the public forum during the IGF. The third is about actionable and concrete outcomes. And this what was highlighted through the work of the existing structures, because we know that the IGF plus structure will rely on the existing the structures by upgrading them. So the existing structures, which are the dynamic coalition and best practice forums, we know during the last IGF, the dynamic coalition activities and initiatives were captured in a dedicated session and featured a strategic discussion on how coalition could contribute to border digital cooperation efforts and strengthen the IGF. There was 17 the dynamic coalition held individual session to discuss internet policy, which is really it was really interesting, discussing policy issues within their focus, and they presented their work. It is noted that there are 22 active dynamic coalitions covering a wide set of issues. I can list the domain name, the blockchain, accessibility, cybersecurity, and so on. And one of key takeaway, as the representative of the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Technology explains, is that the DC's work need to reach more policymakers. It's also need to reach more countries that are grappling with the same issues that the coalitions are working on. They are doing really very interesting work, and it was really shown in the last IGF. Regarding the best practice forums, whose main work is to share best practices, and which is also very important in this forum, there were 2 sessions about cybersecurity and gender digital rights. The fourth actions and changes that were noted is about strengthening cooperation and coordination, which can be ensured by strengthening the role of initiatives on regional and national level, as well as meaningful youth engagement, including national internet governance forums, regional internet governance forums, and youth IGFs. The regional internet governance forum are named the NRIs. So they analyze, of course, they're discussing issues pertaining to internet governance from the perspective of their respective communities. And from my side, I think that they are beneficial to global discussions that need to be informed by local and regional, because I think that the global discussion need to be informed by the local and regional inputs. And the analyze, I think they can guarantee really that. In addition, the participation of analyze will be a tool of more inclusivity and more cooperation and coordination. To end, if I missed any changement during this last IGF or any efforts that put through to come closer to the IGF plus, I apologize, but this is what wholly I noticed during the last IGF.
No, that is very, very articulate observation set of, so probably you haven't forgot anything.
I
but
hope.
Of course we cannot cover all this
Yes.
300 sessions, but you detected the trends. So it is interesting. If I can summarize what I got, there is for the first time kind of a leadership kind of mechanism. Is it a mechanism? It's a panel. What a panel is about. This is something we might need to understand more from the panelists, those who have the answer. Also, the idea of the dynamic coalitions more proliferating, which means an independent, self-organized initiatives or movements or let us say, positions towards certain themes. You said more coordination. You emphasized, you said there is emphasis on the regional and national. We will
Initiatives, yes.
How this can reflect. But the most intriguing change is related to the output. You mentioned like enhancement in the business practice forums, the best practice forum, and this kind of thing. But what is really related to the outputs? Is there anything within this realm of moving from no outcome?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, yeah. I think this will remain challenging because in order to come really close to the IGF plus, we need, for example, the real question is why the emerging issues are not really discussed during the IGF, why we are discussing them in the other forums. We need to bring them in the IGF, for example, like issues about artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. I think we need two other bodies that should be put through in the IGF today. Shanghai can confirm this if I'm not missing, is to have the body of cooperation accelerator who will address the lack of cooperation, and the policy incubator who will advise on which policies we have to discuss on. And of course, we need a point of contact, which is the body of observatory and help desk, which is not put through yet. And Shanghai we can confirm this if I am not wrong, Shanghai. I think we need to put through this, to put these three bodies in order to come closer to the IGF plus structure, where we see all emerging policies discussed.
Yes, it is interesting to have this dialogue. So if you allow me, other speakers, to make this like a cross connect with Shanghai again, just to give us more like clarity about these components: policy incubator, collaboration accelerator, policy. These kind of components, are they in the making or they are still to be consulted upon? And this is not the answer also for the output. So I'm passing the ball to Shanghai before Christine and Zaina and Walid, so that we get more clarity of the possibilities in the near future.
I would say both. As consultants, I mean, we're still consulting, yes, but for instance, with the policy incubator, for policies that we should, that is also the job in part, not entirety. It's also the job for the leadership panel. It's also the job for the MAG, that they will bring forth policies that we should pursue as such. So yes and no. That's my question. That's my answer.
Okay, so it's incremental
yes.
as we can expect, but it is in the making.
Yes.
So let us move now to Christine. Christine, we know she's the strategic planning sector head of the National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt and also a board member of the NTRA, plus the head of the Arab Arab IGF Technical Secretariat for the last 10 years and more, inshallah. Christine, your views on the global dynamics of the internet governance ecosystem. Where do you see it heading to?
Well, I think Shanghai and Wafa have already said a lot about that. But from my point of view, what I would like to add is that it is very important at this stage for the IGF to actually be very courageous in making change, because change in the way it is evolving without actually any change in its mission. As we know, we're not going to look at that because this is a decision of heads of states. So there is no way we're going to look at that at all. We're all convinced about that, but we need to create really a space that is competent to all the other spaces that are happening there. So in the past few years, we've seen so many spaces evolve where digital policies are being discussed. And this is very natural because digital world is becoming the world. Everything is becoming digital. So it makes a lot of sense that we see so many forums for policy discussions coming everywhere. So the IGF has an important evolution that it needs to make in order to remain relevant. And to do so, I think there are many steps that are being taken. Shanghai has talked about the leadership panel. Wafa has put.
What can be more courageous?
Excuse me?
What do you think can be more courageous, or the courageous part of the need to do actions?
I think it's already happening, Ayman. I think we're seeing changes that I recall when we had the IGF in preparation before Sharm el-Sheikh, one of the suggestions that were put forward at the time, actually by the Egyptian delegation, was to have a policy discussion about child online safety, and to have some stakeholders, multi-stakeholders, agree on some policy forward. At the time, the community did not accept that because it was at the very beginning of the IGF. This has evolved. People are taking steps together and cooperating into different policy actions and policy dimensions. Now we have this leadership panel that is coming together that I think is going to correlate to the different venues and different forums. So I think this is happening. We just need to continue doing that. We should not be shying away and being afraid of, that the change can disrupt. No, technical standards alone cannot anymore guarantee that this discussion will continue. There is an increased role of various stakeholders, governments, private sector. We need to take that into account and cooperate as such.
That's great. So already the hardest part is in the making, which is a leadership panel plus. So that is really courageous, for sure. I of course understand that, but I wanted really to point out that there is something really new, because this has not been there before. And now let us move to a certain different dimension that is more on the technological side, and then we go back again to the organizational and inter-organizational aspects. Let me introduce our good friend, Mr. Walid Al-Saqaf, Senior Lecturer in Södertörn University, Sweden, Associate Professor and Senior Lecturer in Journalism and Media Technology. And his interests revolve around the intersection of journalism and technology, including blockchain, artificial intelligence, robotics, and big data. So that is not different from the ecosystems, internet governance ecosystems. Maybe it is at its core. So can you tell us, Walid, how can we see really these changes that are happening in the ecosystem can be affected with technological advances? And this linkage is very important because end of the day, it's a technological phenomena that we are dealing with. Walid, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ayman. Thank you for inviting me. And it's good to reconnect after many years from starting the Arab IGF. Yes, as you properly said, the internet in itself is a technology. So we cannot simply talk policy without fully immersing ourselves in what is changing in the technological dimension. So if we talk about the internet governance ecosystem, we need to also consider the internet's ecosystem itself. From experience on top of the Internet Society, for example, and then ICANN, and within my capacity as an academic, there have been numerous changes to the internet as a whole. One of them is the connected, centralized CDNs and various powerful actors that have become instrumental for the internet to function. And the problem here is that the more centralized these entities become, the higher the likelihood of a weakness in the internet ecosystem will be, because the vulnerabilities are increasing as more power is gathered. And we don't need to go far. About 10% of the whole internet was cut off in June this year. And it was because of a service called Fastly. Service provider Fastly had been interrupted because of a simple bug. And so that illustrates, and this is not an isolated case, increasingly these incidents are happening. And so unless the IGF and Arab IGF and all of these regional national IGFs consider going back to the essential parts of the essential phenomenon of an internet, of a totally decentralized ecosystem that allows for parts of it to fail without affecting the rest, we are doing a disservice to this particular area of internet governance. And so my proposal here is that we build upon, as Christina mentioned, about specialized areas of priority. The IGF itself has a mandate. Obviously, it's about collaboration and working together. But the priority here is to maintain the internet itself. And while the technical community is working on it, it needs to always be on top of the agenda of the IGF. First of all, there are technical challenges. One of them is instrumental, which is the fact that hardware is used, such as the cables and C cables or the various mobile connections, including the newly set up, for example, Starlink satellite connectivity. But there's also a major power dynamic within the business community that addresses private sector actors that have taken a bigger share of the internet as time passes. So these are both business and / technology policies that need to be integrated as part of the mandate of future IGF Plus. Another thing is to consider the innovative means that have evolved from the end users, from actual creators and innovators, including one of many, which is the decentralized ledgers and blockchain technology, for example. And these sort of things start small, but they actually need to be harnessed and attended to instead of neglected or let go alone in their own isolated paths. So a forum like the IGF would be a perfect opportunity for those initiatives to find space, because otherwise they move in a different direction and get captured possibly by the same actors that have actually resulted in what the internet is in today. So these all the innovative, financial, and hardware aspects of the internet are part and parcel of how it functions. And yes, it might be too much technicalities in this, but we can't escape from the fact that the internet itself is a network that was built by engineers. And so going back to the basics and identifying the threads, connecting policymakers and business people and various stakeholders to the original vision of the internet is the highest priority that I can think of. And I hope this is laid as one of the main points to tackle in the future.
Thank you so much. It will be really very challenging for me, if I consider myself a moderator of this session, to really capture all these important messages. I would love really that you, or the panelists, please also try to make it very clear, crisp, and send it to us after the session, because I don't want to miss anything. This is very interesting interventions that you made. You said back to the fundamentals. This is not a conventional, let us say, global public good like the air or the climate, although it is similar in the, let us say, the policy concerns in a way, and the ecosystems of multilateralism and multi-stakeholderism with different magnitude. But you said the network, or this public good is a network. in itself, and it's a telecom network, and it is an engineered object. So that is really insightful, and that would later on the second round bring us to the question, and where is the Arab engineers, if we use the same, let us say, architectural approach, who engineered the internet and architected the internet, were the global community. Some of us were part of the IETF, some of us wrote some internet drafts or RFCs, but where should we go being an academic? This is going to be your question in the next round, inshallah, when we go to the Arab region, because that is very interesting as a policy approach also into shaping the future. And now let me go back again to one of our active partners and champions in the Arab Internet Governance Forum, who have partnered with us in the Internet Governance Forum, the Arab one, in the 3rd and 4th editions, as well as played a role in the 5th and 6th. And over and above, she is a very important also player in a national IGF. Let me move the floor to the head of international cooperation at Ojero Telecom, Ms. Zena Bouharb, who has been also a MAG member in the global MAG for at least 2 or 3 rounds. Zena, can I ask you about the perspective related to the regional and national IGFs? What can be their role in shaping the future, the digital future at the global level first, and then we can speak about the Arab in the second round.
Hello, everybody. I would like first to share my opinion regarding the outcome of the IGF in Poland. Actually, I was checking the summary of the high-level exchange panels and the outcome of the parliamentary track in Poland. Well, everybody there confirmed that to secure a positive future for the internet, governance should at the same time consider the technical aspect as well as access and openness and the human rights as well as economic consideration. This can be only achieved by in a multi-stakeholder manner. The traffic that moved from the roads to the internet, which means that there is a huge need for large investment to accommodate for the infrastructure, but also the investment is needed to build capacity of the user to enhance their digital literacy. This investment also is facilitated by the partnership between the private and public. The digital inequality have become more obvious due to COVID, which calls for immediate action. This is a concrete proof of the need to prioritize digital cooperation through collaboration, through partnerships, maybe through exchange of good practices in order to build together an accessible and inclusive internet for all. For the generations to come also, if you are speaking about shaping our digital future. Our presence as a representation from the Arab region and the global IGF, actually, I can say it is, I used to say it is shy, and I still say it is shy in the participation, in the preparation, even in the representation of the region in the MAG, which has shrink even for the 2022. We were like 4 persons in the MAG from the Arab regions. For 2022, there's only 1 person. I don't know, maybe Shangatai can advise at least, will the region be represented in the forum leadership panel among the 10 members that would be nominated for in the future? This is something we need to think about it. We need to be more engaged, more active as a region in the global IGF. And maybe here I really raise a flag about this presentation, we are maybe doing enough.
Okay, that is an interesting flag to be raised. Before we give the floor to Shangtai on that, let me go to Christine about that also element from also an Arab IGF perspective, plus many engagements of the NTRA on the North African IGF and others, plus being a global IGF host in 2009. That angle that Zeina has raised regarding the presence of the regions in the new developments and new shape of the global IGF. Do you want to give any thoughts on that, Christine, before we move to Shangtai on that idea?
Yes, thank you, Ayman. Maybe I think I joined Zeina actually in all her concerns, because I think any one of us who has been long enough in there can clearly see that there is a diminished presence of the region on a global level. And when I say on the global level, I'm talking about Internet IGF in specific. And maybe not all stakeholders group, maybe we'll find some stakeholders groups like maybe civil society have increased their participation, but I'm definite that we'll find others that have really diminished. And what I want to say is that we have a role to play as Arab IGF community in that perspective. Maybe we should look back and see, did we evolve at the same pace like the global IGF did, or like other regions did, or not? Because if we haven't, then it might be possible that our stakeholders have turned to other forums and to other places for their policy discussions. And this means that we need to engage in a different way. Like, for example, the global IGF has had a parliamentarian track maybe for 3 or 4 years. I can't recall how many years. I don't think we did that we didn't approach that specific stakeholder groups. Shangtai is talking about judges. That's another idea. We've how much intersessional work did we have in terms of availing policy options or gathering best practices? So I would say that we have a role to play in evolving our modalities while remaining very loyal to the mission of the IGF, which is very unique in itself, because it's a forum which has a mandate from the summit, to the World Summit on Information Society, but it also has a long-standing experience in policies, and it is a multi-stakeholder forum that is anchored in a multilateral format. So it means that if we can actually capture those chances on a regional level and evolve them and evolve ourselves into a stronger community, we will be able to go with that piece and maybe address those challenges that Zeina has pointed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So both of you and myself as well, and many others, share the views that we need to have a space and create a space. So either have or create that space in the global ecosystem remains to be another question. But let us first discuss, we need to have, from the supply side, from the global IGF Secretariat and the custodians of it, how much space is there already that we can seize, Shangtai, that we can seize and be there from the regions in the global, especially that I have myself several times concerned on the use of the NRIs. The N is huge. The R are like 5 to 10 in the world. So how can at least the R's have a role, because they are more countable, more definable in the future of these components and constituents, Shangtai?
Thank you very much, Emma. And yes, I mean, I totally agree with all your statements, and especially on the supply side. I just took a quick look at the 2022 MAG, and we have only one person from Tunisia on the MAG. And of course, Egypt does have a permanent seat since it was a host. So those are the only two countries represented on the 2022 MAG. And as far as the leadership panel is concerned, I cannot really comment on that until it's published, but I would like to say that it really depends on who has applied. If we have high-level people, ministerial level, CEO level from the Arab region applying, then yes, there will be a seat for them there. If it's not there, then of course not. We cannot, I mean, they have to fit the criteria. So it is very important to get those people involved in the IGF. For the parliamentary track, there were quite a few parliamentarians from the Arab region that were involved. I'm very glad to say, and they did participate in several of those sessions. And yes, we also do believe that the regional IGF are also very important, and they can act as a point of concentration, as a point to garner all the views of the regional and provide regional leadership there. But of course, we do find that the national IGFs are important as well. But I think the regional IGF can also play a special role there. So yes, that's all I've got to say on the topic. And I urge you, please do encourage stakeholders from the region, from all levels, to actively engage in the IGF. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for that candid, let us say, response. And I'm thinking, as Shangtai responded and picked the thread, that is a supply side, or what is possible. Let us think of how to create that space, or let us say, how can we be on the clearly voicing out our readiness, as Shangtai said, also our availability and our nominations and so on. Until this happen, we need at the Arab IGF during this 2 weeks to also agree on what Christine said, that we have to be more outspoken, reinvent also ourselves and so on. Regarding the parliamentarian, we have tried, Christine, in the IGF 5, remember when we did with Arado to make that thing, but of course it's always been difficult within certain time and resources, and the old dilemma of hosts and so on. So, but we have this already in our convictions to work with the parliamentarians through engagement, capacity building, and also, let us say, nurturing their interest to become active in the regional and global scene. But everything needs resources, and we have been always discussing the idea of institutionalizing the forum in a certain way to also attract and becomes more attractive for the funds. I know that the Secretariat, Global Secretariat, is an XB, correct, Shangtai? XB. That is the Secretariat of the Global IGF, related to also some kind of UN escrow accounts and so on. I know that the Global WIS Secretariat also is an XB. And our Arab IGF so far is mostly based on ad hoc XB. XB means extra budgetary resources. But we have the core resources from ESCWA and champions like NTRA and also the hosts and so on. So we have discussed recently in the last few years how to streamline financing modalities and things. Maybe we can discuss this also in day 6 or 7. We have an MPAC meeting for also this kind of looking forward for the Arab IGF. We are keen really, and we see, as you said, Christine, a turning point, critical juncture, and we really want to serve our community. Now go back to Walid and the question from the academic and technical community point of view, how can we also have a say more in shaping the future from the region globally? And of course, it will reflect back on the region among others. So how can we play that role with that morphing, and you described decentralization, breaking some power, or let us say points of failure, or circumventing it, become more self-healing internet. How can we do that, Walid, from the Arab region?
Thank you very much. I would say I don't have a magic wand to say this is how it should be done, but I can relate to some of the challenges, and based on the understanding of the problem, maybe we can devise solutions. So the problems I have seen based on experience is, number one, the region has not really developed a proper budgetary resources for education. And so it is more of a policy dimension here. Budgets within the region, the Arab world, are very much skewed towards other aspects than education. And on average, I mean, I would say it's very well below many of the industrial countries. There are reasons for that, obviously, but it's not related to the internet in specific, but any new technologies, any aspects regarding innovation and technologies are built from education. Even the very internet that we're using today has emerged from academic institutions funded by, obviously, ARPANET. But the idea is that scientists, engineers, academics are the ones who create. And so resources channeled to those individuals, these institutions, are critical if we are going to solve the problem long term. And so devising through perhaps the Arab League strategies that encourage governments in the region to focus on allocating more portions of their budgets to education, I would say, is a much longer, more fruitful initiative. Another aspect, obviously, there are short-term and medium-term collaborations that can be done. Among them is considering the use of budgets and funds available from the international community. I would say the example of the Internet Society Foundation, which has become more and more engaged in the region, is a good example where they can provide open calls, and then regional actors, including those who have been graduates of the Internet Governance Schools, the Arab Internet Governance School, for example. These elements can actually use these funds to elaborate and work on their portfolios in innovation. Other things can be regional funds. I would say the Arab Internet Governance Forum can actually create incentives for either companies or governments or international actors to create incubators of sorts to help those engineers from the region who are on the verge of, let's say, achieving something, but require support and incentives to do so. So I'd say regional attempts from within the region, as well as international funding, are short-term, medium-term support channels. I personally have been training. A part of my training portfolio includes how Arab actors, including media technologists and innovators, can leverage blockchain technology, for example. I've done the trainings in Dubai, Cairo, and Beirut, as well as Amman. And what I've seen is that the talent is there. There are very actively engaged, enthusiastic individuals who are willing to promote, or let's act in promoting international standards that support the ecosystem, but they lack the sustainability aspects, which is the support, the funding that is required.
Thank you so much. They're very, really interesting angles, and always good to consult from multi-stakeholder setting. You really mentioned out-of-the-box things that not only the international community can fund such kind of an Arab IGF and its central fund or trust fund, but you said that the science and technology and higher education, and this is important. So not only the parliaments, not only the youth, like the youth track we engaged, but we want to engage more the, let us say, well-financed programs of science and technology in the region. And that also opens new doors, really. I have really an interesting, I think it's interesting question, or it's a sneaky and thing that I noticed from our discussion with Shengtai. He told me this year, and he told us, there is a huge participation from the business sector, which is unprecedented. And if we correlate this with the new leadership panel, can we detect a pattern? Is it because of a way towards an outcome or a coordination role being in place? The business sector became more interested? It's just a question, because in our region, and as Christine said, we have challenges, fundamental ones, to attract the business sector, and let alone the government sector that still are keen on the multilateral, which we are keen on too, but they are more keen in the multilateral than multi-stakeholder. So this is here a question of let us find the thread where to unbundle all these things. Do you think, really, just a gut feeling, no need for evidence or anything, do you think that the business sector are interested this year because of the kind of momentum behind the new leadership panel and the possibility of having an outcome? Or why have they this year specifically became more interested?
I think it's several reasons. First of all, yes, there is the changes. There is a call for a global compact that's really calling for the private sector involvement. There is the host country as well, which did a lot of outreach. And I think this also level of interest will increase next year, because for 2022, the MAG chair is actually from business. Paul Mitchell, I don't know if you know him, but he's quite well known in the circles, in the WISA circles, WEF circles, etc. So we do foresee that there is going to be a marked interest from the business sector.
What profile of business sector? Is it the operators, or is it the e-commerce related companies? What have you noticed?
Actually, it's been quite amazing.
Unicorns or SMEs?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's been quite interesting because, of course, we have the traditional business sector, which are the operators and etc., who have been traditionally there. But we're also now getting people like from BMW attending, from Walmart, for instance. So from those kind of industries that you wouldn't actually expect to be interested in the IGF, but of course all businesses do operate on the internet. We do have to do some work actually for the SMEs, and that is one of our aims for this year as well, is to really concentrate on the SMEs and to get them to come into the IGF. But as far as the big companies are concerned, we are seeing a lot of interest coming up from places that we wouldn't otherwise have seen.
Including the companies like Facebook and Twitter and Google.
Yeah, Facebook, Amazon have been there for quite a number of years. So those are our regulars. As a matter of fact, Facebook was there this year, and they also participated in the high-level panels last year. We've got Amazon. We've been trying to get TikTok, but it's just a timing issue as well, because they're also based in California. So we've had communication with them.
So getting them as speakers, you mean, through the MAG?
I beg your pardon?
As speakers, you mean as speakers through the MAG?
As speakers to the high-level panels, etc. We've had Facebook on the MAG, Amazon not, Google of course has been on the MAG, but the rest, like sorry, I've forgotten the name now. I mean, they've been there. BMW came and gave a speech which to me is very interesting. Walmart was on the high level panel and was a panelist. This person from Walmart. So we've got
that is
people from
probably
Zoom.
the e-commerce phenomena.
Yeah.
And let us say the substitution effect between conventional trade and e-commerce trade that occurred during the pandemic.
Yes.
Makes a lot of logic. So Wafa has raised her hand.
Yes, I raised my hand, perhaps a question or a comment, but I know that the leadership level will include normally high-level potential officers, civil society, CEOs of leader tech companies, but once they are in the leadership panel, can they support financially the IGF, or it will be considered a conflict of interest? Because I know we would like to have this support normally for the finance of IGF from, we would get finance from, for example, the organization who are governing technically the internet, like ICANN, ITU, ITF, and also we would like to have financial support from private sector. So once they are on the leadership panel, will they be able to support financially the IGF?
And conflict of interest is one of those things you have to see to know whether or not, if they suddenly give whatever, $250,000 and then they are on the leadership panel, of course, no. But if they've been long-term supporters and then they're on the leadership panel, that's still fine. And also their position, what are they? ICANN gives us money, but they are also a big player and you cannot really ignore them as such. So it's one of those things that you have to see and make a determination case by case.
I think we have to choose whether to put them in the MAG or the leadership level to guarantee the finance support.
Yeah.
But in fact, that is an interesting question. But in fact, still the model is based on host contributions, still based on countries that are hosting and spending a lot, especially when we are back to physical, or even the virtual is very also costly. So we know, Shengtai knows, we know how the balance between sustaining a secretariat, which is fundamental and prerequisite, and also putting together a big conference or activity. So still, it is very important to sustain a secretariat, to sustain the Arab or also global, let us say, central activities accompanying the reform. Nevertheless, the governments, they do also contribute through their hosting. Mostly they are governments. And the hosting is like more than 50%, 60% of the, let us say, annual cost. If we have an annual cost meter, we can see that the host is much more costly expenses than the secretariat. Correct, Chengtai?
Yes,
we know that because of the nature of an event and gathering and all the operational expenses. So that brings me back again to the role of governments, because we discussed the role of business, we discussed different angles related to regional and national, the role of governments, and here we have Christine mainly as a government representative, also Zena in a way, because Ojero is a government body, and other actors. ATI also is the government, صح, Wafa? Okay, so we count on these governments to really put most of the money for the hosting, to do a real gathering, and to do intersessional. But we need also to find a formula when they do such kind of things to put a portion to support the intersessional work of the Secretariat, of the MAG, of the capacity building induction and things like that. This formula is not there yet. That although we are trying to innovate a formula, like a host can, for example, do a certain activity, and from the activity, certain surplus can go to the Secretariat to ensure sustainability of the whole process and become a strategic partner. So what do you think about the attraction of governments in our region? Most of the three countries we have now, Lebanon, Egypt, and Tunis, have in a way or another hosted either major activities or preparatory activities in our Arab IGF journey in a way or another. So how can we maintain also the interest of governments? We said maintain the interests of the business is a challenge. Maintain the interest of government is still a challenge. And you rightly put it, Christine, it's a multi-stakeholder anchor to multilateral. So how can we still attract more of the government attention in the region?
Well, that's a tough question, Ayman, because we have not been doing very good on that dimension. But I mean, trying to look a bit at the at our region and at the government role in the region, especially with the new normal and after COVID, governments are more and more realizing that they have to be rather enablers more than gatekeepers, if I can put it this way. And this is because we would like to achieve a digital economy in this part of the world. We would like to be initiators of digital content, of digital technologies. We do not want to be just receptors of technology. And it's not anymore about how much power governments have. It's more about how much they can anchor their communities in a very dynamic digital world. So with that in mind, we really have to think about how we can get the attention of governments and provide them with a venue where they can, cooperate and have, again, going back to the critical mass I discussed maybe in the opening session, how can we create a critical mass from our internet community in the region, and through this critical mass harmonize our policies to be able to get to that common interest that we all actually share, irrespective of how much developed versus developing we are in the region. We all are behind with respect to the digital economy and to being producers of content. So I think that's an anchor point. And there is so much to be done with respect to policies in that dimension. And if we can find a formula where we harmonize those policies among the Arab region, I think we can get the attention of governments and have this potential for attracting a dialogue with the international community, especially the businesses.
Thank you, Christine. I will listen to Wafa and Zena, but yes. I want to compliment Christine in a way as if she will also probably endorse what I'm saying. There is a formula being done. Remember, 2 weeks ago, your team has been part of the work. Your team working on the Internet Governance Forum, global region, has been part of the work that is multilateral related to the Arab Digital Agenda. So, I mean, we are trying also last week on the 9th of December to put an element in the Arab Digital Agenda journey to be also exposed to the multi-stakeholder community for public comments. So we are trying to find that kind of common interest between the two spheres, the multilateral conventional council of ministers and our work, your work, everyone's work there, and the Arab IGF community. Furthermore, part of the Arab Digital Agenda, there are elements related to the, let us say, policy dialogue every year, how to make it happen, and so on and so forth. So thanks for your team's participation in both things. And from that, I think linkage is being created. That's it. Wafa and Zainab.
Yeah, thank you, Ayman, for this question. Let me join Christine that the COVID-19 has brought the internet governance side back. It's not no longer a priority for our governments. But however, let me share with you our experience with the local IGF. In the beginning, we had the regulator as a secretariat in our national IGF, but after a few years, he has resigned, and we don't know why the regulator has resigned. Even the initiative was supported by the government, the ministry specifically. Then we are today. Our local IGF is supported by Internet Tunisian chapter, and in order to attract the government, we will set agenda that will focus on somehow on the policies, public policies that being issued or being drafted within the government. We find this is as a way to attract the government and come to forum and discuss, as a way to come and discuss and collaborate with us. Of course, that is the. I wanted to share our experience with the implication of the involvement of the government in our local IGF.
Thank you, Wafa. Thank you. Zaina?
If I may just share the experience, the problems that we are facing here in Lebanon. Everybody here knows that since 2019, Lebanon has been struggling with a severe economic crisis, which has a direct impact on all the activities, mainly because Algeria was the first supporter for the Lebanese IGF. The Lebanese MAG this year faced a lot of challenges in ensuring that we will be able to hold the forum, even in a hybrid format. So, as usual, the same players, it's Ogero who hosted the on-site event, the on-site meeting where we we invited actually just the Lebanese MAG and the speakers of every panel to join at Ogero. The Maharat, which is sharing the Lebanese MAG, provided the business account for Zoom because we needed an account that we cannot pay except by fresh US dollars. This is difficult in the current days in Lebanon. ISOC provided some catering and also hosted one of the sessions in another venue in Beirut. You know that in April 2021, around 52% of the companies in Lebanon closed or moved out of Lebanon. We will not rely on the support of the private sector. So for next year, there's nothing confirmed.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
sure.
That is, Zena, that is normal in a politically complicated situation, like what is being now in Lebanon. But I mean, from the conceptual point of view, how can these kind of policy dialogues really be interesting to governments? I suggested, for example, like at the regional level, there is an interest policy document coming. There should be an interest policy advocacy platform with it. So that kind of things may mobilize. But we all totally understand political turmoil in Lebanon. We understand some kind of crisis moments in Tunisia and so on. But let me say, for example, for sake of brainstorming, what if we apply the consolidated model, which multi-stream, multi-track, multi-segments approach next year? So this year we have the Arab IGF and the Arab WISIS together. What if we have a track, for example, for national IGFs here and there, and we consolidate the platforms, consolidate operations and things like that? And as you said, new faces will mingle with new faces in other countries and so on. This is just food for thought for the last session of next week, inshallah, and dealing also with a year of uncertainty coming. We don't know if we are moving from the virtual to the hybrid or from the virtual direct to physical, or we go back. So anyways, that COVID situation, political turmoils are there. We believe in consolidation of the communities, WISIS community with IGF community, multi-governmental with multilateral, with multi-sectoral, with multi-stakeholder. And we hope we can find a formula. But overall, attracting governments, I think, to the global is totally different ball game from attracting government to the regional. Because in the global, probably most of the, let us say, changes are being discussed globally. And that is always something of competitive advantage to the mother parent forum of the global IGF secretariat. Unless I can give us also a reverse view, what can be really attractive for the governments in the countries of regions to really go into dialogue within the countries in the region, in addition to the global. You have a platform that is more attractive. Most of even the key actors in our region are more keen to be in the global. How can they be as keen as to be in the regional and national? How do you see it from your angle, Shanktai? You are muted, huh?
for governments or for any stakeholder group or for anybody to participate in the IGF, of course, they have to have some benefit from doing that. And as far as the regional IGFs are concerned, I do think that maybe they're just not aware of the values. And sometimes they're not even aware that they have a regional IGF there. So it is a matter of informing them, and it's a matter of speaking to them and telling them that, yes, there is this forum, there are these stakeholder groups, and what are the benefits? You can talk to businesses. They are interested in attracting businesses, right? And they can attract businesses in the regional level. They are interested in having a unified policy, because of course it is the internet, and there's no use having one policy in one country and another policy in the other country, because they'll all go to the businesses, and everybody else will go to the country where there is more favorable policies. So I think it's just a matter of informing them and
so more outreach.
Yes, more outreach. Yes.
You are right, because even changes in leadership in the government, as international organizations, everywhere, we need always to outreach with the newcomers, new game changers. And that would really be a good food for thought for our retreat at the end of the 2 weeks. And with this, let us say, insights on attracting the government, attracting the business, and also informing others about the values already entrenched in such kind of modalities, as well as reorganizing like kind of regional clouds and so on and so forth, we can become more effective in the global ecosystem. And these ideas from that session are really very, very much valuable. I would like to remind you all that the IGF session 1 on thematic session 1 tomorrow will take place at Beirut 12 noon time. It will be related to meaningful access and inclusivity. The same time slot, the day after, we will have plenary session 2, thematic session 2 on legal, regulatory, and policy frameworks in regards to also data privacy and protection of our internet assets. We will continue with the same time slot of 12 noon Beirut time on Monday and Tuesday for a session on digital economy versus digital transformation, which approach can get us shorter to digital development. And on Tuesday, we will have a session on human, cultural, and behavioral aspects of the internet towards more healthy internet consumption. And I think these are the outcome of the bottom-up approach, the Arab Multi-Stakeholder Program Advisory Committee, the stakeholder engagement. We are already walking the talk. We have done these complex sessions through the community experts, and I thank them all. And I thank you all, dear panelists. And I would like also to tell you that there are side events by the community who are keen to respond to our open call. Today, after this session, 1 hour or 45 minutes from now, 40 minutes actually, we'll have a session, very important session on a single internet and avoiding fragmentation. Tomorrow, we'll have a session from ISOC in the morning and in the afternoon. And next week, we'll have a session by RIPE, in addition to other sessions also anchored to the Arab IGF. I cannot remember them all, but I remember these kind of also names being very faithful and good partners to the Arab IGF, especially ICANN, ISOC, and RIPE, among others. Of course, the agenda is there on the website. I would really suggest that you also promote it. The last session of RIPE is also part of the youth track. And then we'll have a stock taking at the end of the next week. I thank you all, really from our heart. I thank my colleagues, Mirna, who yesterday has also moderated a session that is an outreach type to the youth, giving background through our consultants and tutors on the internet governance. as well as our colleagues in the operational team, Rita, Tala, Noor, and Malak, Khadija, Hadi, and many others. Thank you to all, and stay tuned for the next session of ICANN.
Thank you, Ayman. Thank you, your team.
Thank you very much, Ayman.
Qusay,
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.
and Charles from the Special Task Force leadership,
Thank
Qusay and
you.
Hanan, as well as Charles Shaban, the head of the AMPAC, as well Ahmed Farag, Hisham Abu Yazid, Hazem Hazza, Khalid Wali, and all the distinguished colleagues, Hussein Badran, Fatna Al-Farsi, Adil Abdel Sadiq, as well as many names, Hafiz Al-Yahmadi, and then, of course, many others were in this special task force. And I hope I did not forget a lot of names, but please forgive me if I did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayman.
Meet the ICANN session after 40 minutes. Bye-bye.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalam.
Bye-bye.
Under the slogan of shaping our digital future, the Arab International Digital Cooperation and Development Forum, the CDF, will bring together representatives and experts from Arab governments, the business sector, civil society, the technical community, academia, and international organizations. DCDF will be held virtually from 13 to 23 December 2021 by ESCO, LAS, ITU, UNCTAD, and UNDESA. Through almost 30 sessions over 8 days, you can participate in policy debate on priority issues in the fields of internet policies and digital development globally and in the Arab region. DCDF aims to align the Arab tracks of the World Summit on the Information Society and the Internet Governance Forum to maximize opportunities for digital cooperation. Register now to join us in this journey from 13 to 23 December. Together, let's shape our digital future.